The morning sun cast golden rays through the large windows of the palace, but William barely noticed. He sat at the edge of their bed watching Kate sleep peacefully, her chest rising and falling with each gentle breath. For months now, these quiet moments had become precious to him. Every second felt like borrowed time, something he wanted to hold on to forever but knew he couldn't. Kate opened her eyes slowly, and even in her weakened state, her smile could light up the entire room. That same smile had captured his heart years ago, when they were just two young students at university. Back then, life seemed full of endless possibilities. They would walk through the campus grounds talking about their dreams and futures, never imagining that one day they would face something like this. William reached for her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. Her hand felt smaller than he remembered, more fragile. The doctors had told them 6 months ago that Kate's condition was serious. They had used words like terminal, incurable, and limited time. But William refused to accept it at first. He demanded second opinions, consulted specialists from around the world, and researched every possible treatment option. Kate had been more accepting, more at peace with the reality they faced. She squeezed his hand gently and whispered that she wanted to spend the day in the garden. It was early autumn and the leaves were beginning to change colors. Kate had always loved this time of year. She said it reminded her that change was natural, that letting go was part of life's beauty. William helped her into her robe, supporting her weight as they made their way downstairs. The garden stretched out before them, a carefully maintained paradise that Kate had designed herself years ago. Rose bushes lined the pathways and a small fountain bubbled peacefully in the center. They sat on their favorite bench, the one positioned under the old oak tree where they had shared their first kiss as a married couple. Kate leaned against William's shoulder, and they sat in comfortable silence. She had grown tired more easily in recent weeks, her energy fading like the summer sun gives way to autumn darkness. But her spirit remained strong. She talked about the children, about making sure they remembered to be kind, to find joy in simple things, to love deeply and without reservation. William listened, his throat tight with emotion. He wanted to tell her that she didn't need to worry, that he would make sure the children remembered everything about her. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, he held her closer, breathing in the familiar scent of her perfume mixed with the garden's floral fragrance. A butterfly landed on Kate's outstretched hand. She smiled at the delicate creature, marveling at its beautiful wings. She had read somewhere that butterflies represented transformation and hope. She liked that idea. The butterfly stayed for a moment before flying away, dancing through the air toward the roses. As the afternoon stretched on, they reminisced about their journey together. Kate remembered their wedding day, how nervous William had been before the ceremony. He had confessed to her later that his hands were shaking so badly, he was afraid he would drop the ring. She remembered their first home, a modest apartment where they learned to cook together, often creating disasters in the kitchen that left them laughing until their sides hurt. William spoke of the day their first child was born, how Kate had been so strong and brave. He remembered thinking in that moment that he couldn't possibly love her more, but somehow his love had continued to grow with each passing year. Every challenge they faced together, every joy they shared had deepened the bond between them. Kate mentioned the small things she would miss: morning tea in bed, rainy Sunday afternoons spent reading, the way William would unconsciously reach for her hand whenever they walked together. She talked about the sound of their children's laughter echoing through the halls, family dinners where everyone talked over each other, and quiet evenings by the fireplace. The sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Kate shivered slightly and William wrapped his jacket around her shoulders. She protested weakly, saying he would get cold, but he insisted. They stayed until the first stars appeared, neither wanting to break the spell of this perfect day. That night, as William helped Kate back to bed, she held his face in her hands and looked into his eyes. She told him that she had been blessed beyond measure. She had lived a life full of love, had been cherished and adored, had raised beautiful children, and had experienced more happiness than most people find in 2 lifetimes. Her only regret was that she had to leave him sooner than planned. William felt tears streaming down his face. He had tried so hard to stay strong for her, to be the pillar of support she needed, but in this moment his heart was breaking. He climbed into bed beside her, pulling her close, and they held each other as the moonlight streamed through the windows. Kate whispered that she wasn't afraid. She had made peace with what was coming. Her only concern was for William and the children. She made him promise that he would let himself grieve but not let grief consume him. She wanted him to find happiness again, to keep living fully, to show their children that love never truly ends. It just transforms into something different. William promised, though the words felt impossible. How could he imagine a future without her? She was woven into every part of his life, every dream, every plan. But he knew she needed to hear him say it, needed to know that he would be okay eventually. So he made the promise, holding her tighter as sleep finally claimed them both. The following weeks moved in a strange rhythm, days blending together, yet each one feeling distinctly precious. Kate had good days and difficult days. On good days, she would sit with the children, helping them with homework or reading stories. On difficult days, she barely had energy to leave her room. William learned to read her needs without her having to ask, becoming attuned to every shift in her breathing, every flicker of discomfort across her face. The children knew their mother was sick, but William and Kate had decided to shield them from the full truth for as long as possible. They were too young to fully understand death, too innocent to grasp the finality of goodbye. Kate wanted their remaining time together to be filled with love and normalcy, not fear and sadness. One morning, their youngest daughter climbed into bed with Kate, snuggling close and asking why Mommy was always tired. Kate stroked her daughter's hair and explained that sometimes bodies get very tired and need extra rest. The little girl accepted this explanation easily, as children do, and began chattering about her day at school. William watched from the doorway, his heart simultaneously full and breaking. Kate had started writing letters. She would sit by the window when she had energy, pen moving slowly across paper. She wrote to each of their children. Letters to be opened on important days in their futures. Letters for graduations, weddings, first heartbreaks, and moments when they would need their mother's guidance. She wrote to William, too, though she kept those letters private, sealed, and dated for anniversaries and birthdays yet to come. William found himself taking photographs constantly. He wanted to capture everything. Kate's smile, the way she tilted her head when she laughed, her hands as she braided their daughter's hair, her profile as she gazed out at the garden. He was building a treasury of memories, knowing these images would have to sustain them for a lifetime. Friends and family visited often, though Kate tired quickly. Her sister would come and sit quietly beside her, sometimes talking, sometimes just holding hands. Kate's mother struggled the most with the reality of losing her daughter. No parent should outlive their child, she would say through tears. Kate comforted her mother, telling her that she had lived a beautiful life and that was what mattered. William's brother visited one afternoon, bringing Kate's favorite flowers. The two brothers sat in the study afterward, sharing a drink in heavy silence. William finally broke down, admitting how terrified he was. He didn't know how to do this, how to say goodbye to the person who had been his partner in everything. His brother listened, offered what comfort he could, but they both knew there were no words that could make this easier. Kate asked William to help her plant bulbs in the garden. Spring bulbs, she explained, that would bloom after she was gone. She wanted to leave something behind that would return year after year, bringing color and life to the garden they had created together. They worked side by side in the cool autumn air, Kate directing while William did the heavy digging. She chose tulips, daffodils, and crocuses, planning out combinations of colors and heights. As they planted, Kate talked about her hopes for the children. She wanted them to be brave but kind, strong but compassionate. She hoped they would remember her, but she didn't want grief to define them. William planted each bulb carefully, as if he was placing pieces of Kate's soul into the earth, ensuring part of her would always remain with them. That evening, Kate asked for a family dinner, everyone together around the table like normal. The cook prepared Kate's favorite meal, though she could only manage a few bites. The children chattered excitedly, sharing stories from school and squabbling over silly things. Kate smiled throughout, her eyes moving from face to face, memorizing each beloved expression. After dinner, they gathered in the living room. Kate suggested they each share their favorite family memory. Their eldest child spoke of a beach vacation years ago, building sandcastles and searching for shells. The middle child remembered a Christmas morning when it had snowed, and they had all gone outside in their pajamas to make snow angels. The youngest simply said her favorite memory was right now being together. William's voice caught as he shared his memory. He spoke of the day Kate had agreed to marry him. He had been terrified she might say no, despite how much they loved each other. When she said yes, he felt like the luckiest man alive. He still felt that way, he added, looking at Kate with such love that everyone in the room felt it. Kate saved her memory for last. She said her favorite memory wasn't a single moment, but a collection of tiny ones. Morning kisses before William left for work, bedtime stories with sleepy children, lazy Sunday mornings, laughter over burnt dinners, quiet conversations late at night. The ordinary moments, she said, were the ones she treasured most because they were the foundation of their extraordinary life together. The children went to bed reluctantly, each hugging Kate extra tight. After they were asleep, William carried Kate upstairs. She was getting lighter, he noticed with a pang. She rested her head against his shoulder, completely trusting in his strength to support her. In their room, William helped Kate into her nightgown and brushed her hair the way she liked. These intimate acts of caregiving had become sacred rituals, moments of tenderness that felt both heartbreaking and holy. Kate watched him in the mirror, her eyes full of gratitude and love. They lay in bed talking softly about everything and nothing. Kate made William promise to let the children remember her truthfully, not as a perfect saint but as a real person who loved them fiercely. She wanted him to remarry someday if he found love again, though William couldn't imagine such a thing. She insisted, saying she wanted him to have companionship and happiness. William talked about practical matters, asking about her wishes for the funeral, what music she wanted, who should speak. Kate had already written everything down, she told him, in a folder in her desk. She had tried to think of everything, to make it as easy as possible for him when the time came. William marveled at her strength, at her ability to face what was coming with such grace and planning. As Kate drifted towards sleep, she murmured that she was tired but content. She had no unfinished business, no regrets that haunted her. She had loved and been loved in return. That, she whispered, was more than enough for any lifetime. November arrived with cold winds and gray skies. Kate spent most of her time in bed now, the pain becoming harder to manage despite the medication. William had arranged for hospice care at home, refusing to let her spend her final days in a hospital. Their bedroom had been transformed into a comfortable sanctuary, filled with flowers, photographs, and soft music playing quietly in the background. The children began to understand that something serious was happening. Their usual routines were disrupted, and there were always nurses coming and going. Kate's sister had moved into the guest room to help with the children and provide support. William was grateful for the help, though he barely left Kate's side except when absolutely necessary. Kate had lucid moments where she seemed almost like herself again, joking with the nurses and asking detailed questions about everyone's lives. During these windows, William would bring the children in to spend time with her. They would cuddle carefully on the bed, Kate listening to their stories and offering gentle advice. She told them how proud she was of each of them, how much joy they had brought to her life. During one such visit, their middle child asked if Mommy was going to heaven. Kate took a deep breath and answered honestly this time. She explained that yes, she was very sick, and soon her body would stop working. But she promised that her love for them would never end, that she would always be with them in their hearts and memories. The children cried, and Kate cried with them, all of them holding each other in a tangle of arms and tears. William made sure to take the children out of the room when Kate's pain became severe. He didn't want their last memories of their mother to be of her suffering. Kate's sister would distract them with activities while William sat beside Kate, holding her hand and wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. In those moments he felt utterly helpless, wishing desperately that he could take her pain away. Kate's closest friends came to say goodbye, though the word was never spoken aloud. They brought memories and laughter, reminding Kate of adventures they had shared over the years. One friend brought photos from their university days, and they laughed at their young, carefree faces. Another brought a recording of songs they had loved in their 20s, and Kate smiled with her eyes closed. Transported back to simpler times, William's grandmother visited, a woman in her 90s who had known both love and loss. She sat beside Kate's bed and held her hand, speaking softly about her own husband's death decades ago. She told Kate that love doesn't end with death, it simply changes form. She said that William would feel Kate's presence in unexpected moments. A familiar song on the radio, the scent of her perfume lingering in a room, a sudden memory triggered by something small. This comforted Kate, and she thanked the older woman for her wisdom. As November progressed, Kate began to drift in and out of consciousness more frequently. The doctors explained that this was natural, that her body was beginning to shut down. William kept a vigil by her bedside, sleeping in a chair pulled close to the bed. He wanted to be there every time she opened her eyes, wanted his face to be the first thing she saw. One evening, Kate woke more alert than she had been in days. She asked William to open the curtains so she could see the garden. The moon was nearly full, casting silver light across the landscape. Kate could see the spot where they had planted the spring bulbs, dormant now beneath the cold earth but holding the promise of future blooms. She told William about a dream she had been having. In it, she was young again, running through a field of wildflowers. She felt light and free, without pain or fear. She would turn around and see William running toward her, and she would wait for him, knowing that eventually he would catch up. The dream brought her peace, she said. It made her less afraid of what was coming. William told her about a memory he had been thinking about. It was from their honeymoon, a simple moment on a balcony overlooking the ocean. They had been watching the sunset, and Kate had turned to him and said she couldn't imagine being happier than she was in that exact moment. William told her that he thought about that moment often, how her happiness had made him feel like he had accomplished something truly important in life. Kate smiled and whispered that she had been happy, incredibly happy, for most of her life. The illness had been difficult, but it hadn't erased all the joy that came before. She had been loved well, and she had loved well in return. That was what mattered most. They talked about the children, about William's hopes and plans for their futures. Kate offered her thoughts, her insights into each child's personality and needs. She talked about her letters, reminding William where she had hidden them and when they should be given. She had thought of everything, trying to leave guidance for all the milestones she would miss. As the night deepened, Kate grew tired again. William helped her get comfortable, adjusting pillows and blankets. He lay down beside her on the bed, something he had been doing every night, unwilling to waste any remaining time sleeping separately. Kate nestled against him, and he wrapped his arms around her carefully, mindful of her frailty. She spoke so softly he had to lean close to hear. She thanked him for their life together, for being exactly the partner she needed, for giving her a family and a home full of love. She thanked him for his strength during her illness, for never making her feel like a burden, for loving her even as her body failed her. William's tears fell onto the pillow as he told her that she had been his greatest blessing. She had made him a better person, had taught him what truly mattered in life. He thanked her for choosing him, for staying beside him through everything, for being the mother of their children. He told her that loving her had been the easiest and best thing he had ever done. Kate whispered that she was ready, that she had made her peace. She wasn't afraid anymore. She felt tired, so very tired, and the idea of rest appealed to her. William held her tighter, knowing what she was really saying but not wanting to accept it. They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms, the moonlight streaming through the window and bathing them in silver light. The night passed quietly, peacefully. William woke several times to check on Kate, relieved each time to feel her breathing continue. Morning came with pale sunlight filtering through the curtains. Kate opened her eyes one more time, looked at William with such profound love that it took his breath away, and whispered that she loved him. He said it back over and over like a prayer. Then Kate closed her eyes, her breathing growing slower and softer until finally it stopped altogether. The world didn't stop when Kate died, though it felt to William like it should have. The sun continued to rise, people went about their daily lives, and time marched relentlessly forward. But in that bedroom, holding Kate's still hand, William felt frozen. He sat there for a long time, unwilling to let go, unwilling to begin the next chapter of his life without her. Eventually, the nurse came in and gently suggested that it was time to call the doctor. William nodded numbly and finally released Kate's hand. He stood on shaking legs and walked to the window, staring out at the garden they had tended together. Everything looked the same, but nothing would ever be the same again. He had known this moment was coming, had tried to prepare himself for months, but nothing could have prepared him for the crushing weight of this grief. Kate's sister came in and saw immediately what had happened. She hugged William tightly while he remained rigid, unable to respond. She offered to tell the children, but William said no. This was something he needed to do himself, as difficult as it would be. They were his responsibility now, his alone, and he needed to start acting like the father they would need to get through this. He found the children in the playroom, trying to distract themselves with toys but clearly anxious. Their little faces looked up at him hopefully, searching for reassurance. William sat down on the floor with them and gathered them close. He told them as gently as he could that their mother had died that morning, that she wasn't in pain anymore, that she was at peace. The children reacted differently. Their eldest cried immediately, the middle child sat in stunned silence, and the youngest didn't seem to fully understand. William held them while they cried, his own tears finally coming. They asked questions he didn't have answers for. Would they ever see Mommy again? Why couldn't the doctors fix her? Was it their fault? William did his best to comfort them, to explain that death was a natural part of life even when it felt cruel and unfair. He promised them that they would get through this together, that they would always have each other and the memories of their mother's love. The next few days passed in a blur of arrangements and visitors. William moved through the tasks mechanically, making decisions about the funeral, contacting relatives, accepting condolences. People kept saying they were sorry for his loss, and he would nod and thank them, though the words felt meaningless. Kate's mother was devastated, barely able to function. William found himself comforting her, taking care of others when he could barely take care of himself. He spent hours reading Kate's letters, the ones she had written to him. She had thought of everything, leaving words of love and encouragement for specific occasions. There was one marked to be opened immediately after her death. In it, she told him that she knew how much pain he was in, that she wished she could take it away. She reminded him that grief was love with nowhere to go, and that feeling it deeply meant he had loved deeply. She encouraged him to feel everything fully but not to drown in it. She reminded him that their children needed him, that life was waiting for him to live it again. The funeral was held on a cold November afternoon. The church was packed with people whose lives Kate had touched. William was amazed at the turnout, at how many people had loved his wife. Friends from university, colleagues from her charity work, neighbors and family members filled every pew. The children sat in the front row with William, dressed in their best clothes, looking small and lost. William had been asked to give the eulogy, and he had spent days trying to find the right words. How could he possibly capture everything Kate had been in a few minutes? But he knew he had to try, for her and for their children. He walked to the podium on unsteady legs, the church silent except for the sound of people crying softly. He began by thanking everyone for coming, for loving Kate, for supporting their family. Then he spoke about meeting Kate for the first time, how she had walked into his life and changed everything. He talked about her kindness, her infectious laugh, her ability to find joy in simple moments. He shared stories that made people laugh through their tears. The time she had accidentally dyed his shirts pink in the laundry, the disastrous cooking experiments, the way she sang off-key in the shower without any self-consciousness. But William also spoke honestly about the past year, about Kate's courage in facing her illness. He talked about her grace and dignity, how she had thought of everyone else even as her own body failed her. He mentioned the letters she had written, the garden she had planted, the legacy of love she had left behind. His voice broke several times, but he pushed through, determined to honor her properly. He ended by speaking directly to their children, telling them that their mother's greatest pride and joy had been them. He promised that they would keep her memory alive through stories and traditions, that she would never truly be gone as long as they remembered her. He told them that it was okay to be sad, okay to cry, but that eventually, the sadness would ease and the happy memories would bring more comfort than pain. Kate's best friend spoke next, sharing memories of their friendship spanning decades. She talked about Kate's loyalty, her wisdom, her ability to make everyone feel special and heard. She shared a funny story about a road trip they had taken in their 20s, getting lost and running out of gas but laughing the entire time. The church filled with gentle laughter, a brief respite from the heavy grief. The service concluded with Kate's favorite hymn. William held his children close as voices rose in song, filling the church with bittersweet beauty. He thought about Kate, about whether some part of her could hear this tribute to her life. He hoped she could, hoped she knew how deeply she was loved and would be missed. At the cemetery, William stood at the graveside with his children, watching as Kate's casket was lowered into the ground. It felt surreal, impossible that the vibrant woman he had loved was gone forever. Each of the children placed a flower on the casket. Their youngest asked if Mommy would be cold in the ground, and William had to choke back a sob as he explained that Mommy wasn't really there, just her body. Her spirit, her love, would always be with them. After everyone else had left, William stayed behind with the children. They sat on the grass beside the fresh grave, not ready to leave yet. William told them stories about their mother, making them laugh with silly anecdotes. He wanted them to remember that their mother had been fun and full of life, not just sick and fading. As the sun began to set, they finally left the cemetery. William drove home slowly, the children quiet in the back seat. The house felt empty when they walked in, Kate's absence palpable in every room. Her sister had stayed behind to prepare dinner, trying to maintain some normalcy for the children's sake. That night, after tucking the children into bed and spending extra time with each of them, William stood alone in the bedroom he had shared with Kate. Her things were still everywhere, her robe hanging on the door, her book on the nightstand, her perfume on the dresser. He wasn't ready to move any of it yet. He needed these physical reminders that she had been real, that their life together hadn't been a dream. The weeks after the funeral were the hardest. The initial shock wore off, and the reality of life without Kate settled in like a heavy fog. William struggled to maintain routines for the children, while dealing with his own overwhelming grief. Mornings were particularly difficult, those first few seconds after waking when he would forget Kate was gone, reaching for her only to find empty space beside him. The children each grieved in their own ways. Their eldest became quiet and withdrawn, spending hours in their room. The middle child grew angry, having tantrums over small things, unable to express the deeper pain they felt. The youngest kept asking when Mommy was coming home, not fully grasping the permanence of death. William did his best to be there for all of them, but some days he felt like he was barely keeping himself together, let alone helping them through their pain. Kate's sister continued staying with them, and William was grateful for her presence. She kept the household running, making sure meals were prepared and laundry was done. She gave William space to grieve while ensuring the children's basic needs were met, but even she couldn't fill the void Kate had left. Nobody could. William found himself talking to Kate constantly, sharing his day with her as if she could still hear him. He would tell her about the children, about the challenges he was facing, about how much he missed her. Sometimes he felt foolish doing this, but it brought him comfort. The house felt haunted by her memory, but in a way that was more comforting than frightening. The holidays approached and William dreaded them. How could they celebrate Christmas without Kate? She had always been the one who made the holidays magical, decorating the house, planning special meals, organizing traditions. The children needed some sense of normalcy, though, so William forced himself to go through the motions. He put up a tree and strung lights, though his heart wasn't in it. On Christmas morning, the children opened presents with subdued excitement. There was a bittersweet moment when they discovered that Kate had bought and wrapped gifts before she died, each one chosen specifically for them. Her final act of love, thinking of their happiness even knowing she wouldn't be there to see their faces. William had to leave the room for a moment to compose himself. They visited Kate's grave on Christmas Day, bringing flowers and a small decorated tree. The children talked to their mother, telling her about their presence and how much they missed her. William stood back slightly, giving them space but feeling the weight of the day crushing down on him. Their first Christmas without her. The first of many milestones she would miss. As winter turned to spring, life gradually developed a new rhythm. The pain didn't go away, but it became more manageable. William learned to function through the grief, to be the father his children needed even on days when getting out of bed felt impossible. He kept his promise to Kate, allowing himself to feel the pain but not letting it consume him entirely. The children slowly began to heal too. Their eldest started opening up more, talking about memories of their mother and asking questions about her. The middle child's anger softened, replaced by sadness that could be expressed in healthier ways. The youngest still asked about Mommy sometimes, but less frequently, their understanding slowly growing. William discovered Kate's garden folder, filled with detailed plans and notes about each plant. Following her instructions, he tended the garden as spring arrived. And then one day, he noticed green shoots pushing through the soil where they had planted bulbs together. The spring flowers Kate had chosen were beginning to grow. Watching those flowers bloom brought William to tears, but they were different tears than before. There was still grief, but also wonder and gratitude. Kate had known she wouldn't be there to see them, but she had planted them anyway, leaving behind something beautiful that would return year after year. It felt like a message from her, a reminder that life continues, that beauty persists even after loss. William brought the children out to see the flowers. They sat together in the garden, surrounded by the bright colors of tulips and daffodils. He told them how their mother had planned this, how she wanted to make sure the garden stayed beautiful. The children picked some flowers to bring inside, placing them in vases throughout the house. Slowly, William began to pack away some of Kate's things. Not all of them, just enough to make the house feel less like a shrine and more like a home where life could continue. He saved special items for the children: her jewelry, her favorite scarf, a sweater that still smelled faintly of her perfume. He kept photographs displayed everywhere, ensuring her face remained a constant presence in their lives. William returned to work part-time, needing the structure and distraction. His colleagues were understanding, giving him space while offering support. The normalcy of work helped, giving him something to focus on besides his grief, but there were still moments when something would remind him of Kate, and he would have to step away, overwhelmed by sudden waves of missing her. The children went back to school, where counselors helped them process their grief. They made memory boxes in art class, filling them with pictures and small items that reminded them of their mother. They wrote letters to her, expressing feelings they couldn't always verbalize. Slowly, they were learning that grief was something they would carry with them, but it didn't have to define them. On what would have been Kate and William's wedding anniversary, he took the day off. Kate's sister took the children for the day, giving William space to grieve privately. He drove to the cemetery and sat by Kate's grave for hours, talking to her about everything and nothing. He told her about the children's progress, about the garden blooming, about how much he still loved her. He read one of her letters, the one marked for their anniversary. In it, she wrote about their wedding day, about the promises they had made to each other. She reminded him that even though death had parted them, the love they shared was eternal. She told him that she hoped he would find happiness again, that life was too precious to waste in perpetual mourning. She wanted him to honor her memory by living fully, by being present for their children, by finding joy wherever he could. William sat with those words, letting them sink in. He wasn't ready to think about finding happiness or moving on, but he could commit to being present, to giving their children the best life possible, to honoring Kate's memory through how he lived. That felt manageable, like a promise he could keep. As spring progressed into summer, William noticed he was having more good days than bad. He could think about Kate without immediately dissolving into tears. He could laugh at something funny without feeling guilty. He could make plans for the future, even if they were small and tentative. The grief was still there, a constant companion, but it no longer paralyzed him. The children were adjusting too. They still had difficult moments, still cried for their mother, but they were also playing and laughing again. They were making new memories, living their lives, growing and changing. William knew Kate would be proud of their resilience, of their ability to carry their grief while still embracing life. 1 year after Kate's death, William stood in the garden she had loved so much. The spring flowers were blooming again, just as vibrant as the year before. The children played nearby, their laughter carrying on the breeze. William smiled at the sound, something he had wondered if he would ever be able to do genuinely again. Time hadn't healed all wounds, but it had softened the sharp edges of grief into something more bearable. The anniversary of Kate's death had been emotional, but not devastating. William and the children had spent the day celebrating her life, rather than just mourning her death. They looked through photo albums, shared their favorite memories, and visited her grave with fresh flowers. The children had each written letters to their mother, telling her about their year and how much they missed her. William had added his own letter, updating Kate on their lives and thanking her for the foundation of love she had built for their family. William had been following Kate's letters faithfully, opening each one on the designated occasion. There had been one for each child's birthday, for their wedding anniversary, for Christmas. Each letter was a gift, Kate's words providing comfort and guidance even in her absence. She had known exactly what they would need to hear, her insight into her family proving accurate even beyond death. The house had transformed slowly over the year. It no longer felt like a museum to Kate's memory, but rather a living home where her presence was honored but life continued. William had created a memory corner with photographs and special items, a place where the children could go when they needed to feel close to their mother. The rest of the house had been gradually updated, making space for new memories while preserving the old. William had developed new routines with the children. Friday nights were movie nights where they would watch films and eat popcorn. Sundays involved cooking together, often attempting Kate's recipes with varying degrees of success. These traditions helped create stability while allowing them to bond in new ways. The children were thriving, each finding their own path through grief while remaining close to each other and to William. Their eldest child had become more responsible, often helping with the younger siblings. They had Kate's nurturing nature, William noticed, always checking on others and offering comfort. The middle child had channeled their earlier anger into sports, excelling at soccer and finding healthy outlets for their emotions. The youngest was growing up without many direct memories of their mother, which broke William's heart, but they knew Kate through stories and photographs, through the love she had left embedded in their family. Kate's best friend had remained a constant presence in their lives, stepping in to provide a maternal influence when needed. She took the children for special outings, offered advice to William, and kept Kate's memory alive through her own stories and memories. William was grateful for her friendship, for her willingness to help his children maintain a connection to the woman Kate had been. William had started attending a grief support group, something he initially resisted but eventually found helpful. Hearing other people's stories, realizing he wasn't alone in his struggle, provided comfort. He learned that grief didn't have a timeline, that there was no right way to mourn. Some days would always be harder than others, and that was okay. He learned to be gentle with himself, to acknowledge his pain while still moving forward. On a warm summer evening, William sat on the garden bench where he and Kate had spent so many hours together. He could almost feel her presence beside him, could imagine her hand in his. He spoke to her often still, sharing his thoughts and feelings as naturally as if she could respond. He told her about the children's accomplishments, about struggles he was facing, about moments of unexpected joy that broke through the grief. The children came running up, excited about a butterfly they had spotted. It landed on William's shoulder, and they all laughed at the coincidence. William remembered Kate's fascination with butterflies, her belief that they represented transformation and hope. He chose to see this as a sign, Kate's way of reminding them that she was still with them in small, beautiful ways. William had started dating again, something that filled him with guilt and confusion. Kate had encouraged this in her letters, had insisted she wanted him to find companionship and love again. But it felt like betrayal, like moving on meant forgetting her. His grief counselor helped him understand that loving someone new didn't diminish his love for Kate, that the heart has infinite capacity to love. He met someone at a charity event, a kind woman who understood his situation and didn't try to replace Kate. They took things slowly, building a friendship first. William was honest with his children about his feelings, and they surprised him with their support. They wanted their father to be happy, they said. They thought Mommy would want that too. As autumn returned, bringing with it the second anniversary of Kate's death, William felt different than he had the previous year. The grief was still present but had evolved into something more like bittersweet nostalgia. He could think of Kate without pain being the dominant emotion. He could remember their life together with gratitude rather than just sorrow. The family created a new tradition on the anniversary of Kate's death. They called it Kindness Day, spending the day doing good deeds in Kate's honor. They volunteered at her favorite charity, helped neighbors, and performed random acts of kindness for strangers. It felt like a better tribute than just grieving, a way to spread the love and compassion that Kate had embodied during her life. William had been writing letters too, documenting their journey for the children to read when they were older. He wanted them to understand how they had gotten through this difficult time, to see that healing was possible even after devastating loss. He wrote about Kate, about their love story, about how grief had changed but not destroyed them. He wanted his children to know that it was okay to be sad, but also okay to be happy, that honoring someone's memory meant living fully, not drowning in sorrow. The garden remained William's favorite place, the spot where he felt closest to Kate. The flowers she had planted returned faithfully each spring, a living reminder of her love and foresight. He had added to the garden over the years, planting new flowers and creating new spaces, but always maintaining the areas Kate had designed. It was a collaboration across time, their shared creation continuing to grow and evolve. One evening, as William tucked their youngest into bed, the child asked if Mommy was proud of them. William assured them that Kate was incredibly proud, that she was watching over them always, that her love had never stopped even though she was gone. The child smiled and fell asleep peacefully, secure in the knowledge that they were loved by their mother even now. William stood in the doorway of his children's rooms, watching them sleep. They had survived something that should have broken them, but instead it had revealed their strength. They were resilient, compassionate, and capable of carrying grief while still embracing joy. Kate would be proud of them, and William was proud too. Proud of his children, proud of himself for getting them through the darkest time of their lives. Later that night, William sat in his study and opened one of Kate's letters. This one marked for the second anniversary of her death. In it, she wrote about hope. She said that if he was reading this, it meant he had survived 2 years without her. She acknowledged how difficult that must have been, but expressed confidence in his strength and resilience. She told him she hoped he had found moments of happiness, that he wasn't just existing, but truly living. She reminded him that grief and joy could coexist, that honoring her memory didn't require perpetual sadness. Kate's final words in the letter were simple but profound. She wrote that love never dies, it just transforms. Their love story hadn't ended with her death, it had simply entered a new chapter. She would always be part of their family, woven into the fabric of their lives through memories, values, and the love that continued to guide them. She told William that she loved him, always had and always would, and that her greatest wish was for him and their children to live beautiful, full lives. William folded the letter carefully and placed it with the others. He walked to the window and looked out at the moonlit garden. The same moon that had shone on him and Kate during their last night together. The same moon that would continue to rise and set long after they were both gone. Life continued, beautiful and heartbreaking, full of loss but also full of love. He thought about Kate, about their journey together and apart. He thought about the children sleeping peacefully upstairs, about the woman he was slowly opening his heart to, about the future stretching out before him with all its unknowns. He felt Kate's presence, not as a ghost haunting him, but as a warm memory surrounding him like an embrace. William whispered into the quiet room that he loved her, that he always would, that she had given him the greatest gifts of his life. He promised to keep living fully, to raise their children with love and wisdom, to find happiness wherever he could. He promised to never forget her, but also to not let grief define the rest of his life. It was what she had asked of him, and it was a promise he intended to keep.